Welcome, everybody, to the CFF List Waiver Watch Draft for Week 3. I'm Jay Mill. I got my partner, Willie B. We're joined by Tom Harvey and Justice this week. We'll get back to them and what they're up to in just a minute, but we want to roll right into last week's results from the Waiver Watch to see how we did, and then we will get you as much information on the best players to help you immediately with Week 3 to follow. Willie, looks like Jared can continue bragging about his Crown Prince title that we gave him last week. We dubbed him the Crown Prince of CFF, and he certainly outdid us with his 94.9 points, highlighted by Brad Jackson, who he loudly proclaimed was easily the best quarterback pickup option for Week 2, as far as players rostered under 30%. That I think proved to be accurate with 30.8 points. Degens, we all knew he was kind of going to be on a trajectory up, with the injury to the other App State running back there, so he got over 20 with him. And then Chase Hendricks, who again wasn't a secret to a lot of people, but was still rostered at 25%. So some people might have been lucky enough to grab him. And in that victory that Ohio had against West Virginia, certainly continued to prove that he's going to be a target magnet at Ohio. Interesting thing with Jared, though, even though he had the 95 points, it was hit or miss with his guys. He had the three guys we just mentioned that did really well, but then Jackson Warren, kind of fell asleep there, tight end for Colorado State. Miles Montgomery ended up giving up carries to Nixon as they blew out the FCS team that they were playing. So I think Montgomery kind of got caught up in the mismatch there, not getting the normal carries he would have because they didn't need to feed him. And then Carl Chester, maybe the same thing, playing against Jackson State. So, it continues to be kind of a quandary in these early weeks of, do you play guys against small schools? Jared's guys got caught up in that mix there a little bit with his underperformers. But again, the big guys still came through for him. Looks like you finished in second place, Willie, with 79. We're typically trying to get to that 80 to 90 point range. So, you were certainly adequate. Dorian and I weren't far off. Dorian had 65 points. I had 68. I will happily say that I think, four of my guys, would have hit. We like to get quarterbacks that reach 20, running backs that reach 15, and tight ends that get to 10. AJ Swan almost got to 20 with 19.4 for me. My running backs both were in that 15-point range with Dominique Richardson and Jevin Jackson. And Dorian Thomas for New Mexico proved that he's no fluke, as we all thought would be the case, with another double-digit game at tight end. But you Willie, were kind of saved, you said. You want to roll through your team real quick? You had two guys that really stood out, but you had a late-night save there by one of your guys.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed with Miller Moss. Thought I'd get a little bit more out of him. Same thing with Hemby. I don't know what was going on with Marquise Johnson. I don't think he had a stat probably until maybe late second quarter.
Yeah.
So that 4.1 out of him was a little ridiculous. But got saved with Omega Blake. Michael Trigg came in. He was pretty decent, but yeah, I was pretty confident that Maccabee would do what he did.
Yeah, and I saw early in that Baylor SMU game, which by the way was probably one of the best games of the day, maybe easily the best game of the day with their little 45-45 overtime at one point. But Trigg did get the red flag, I think, midway through the second quarter. He was rolling. He had 5 targets, I think, early in the game. Might have even finished with 5 catches. But he was on pace to kind of get over 10 targets again like he did in week 1. So can't fault you there because it looks like they might have pulled him out early. But good job still getting to the, almost to 80.
So, but on that, I was always like to our competition in my mind is what I do is, as long as, I'm better than what you had. And so if I'm 2 games ahead of you by the end of the season, I crown myself as the champion.
Okay.
But then, when we have the guest pickers come back who who qualified for, the final
Playoff.
couple of weeks, then we do that competition. So that's what I always look at it, So
All
you and
right.
I will still have that head to head in my mind.
All
So
right. And again, for the
I'm up one. So there we go.
we've got new viewers. Last week's waiver watch, I think, was finished at about 200 for us, which for little old us, that's pretty good. We're happy to
Hmm.
take it, and it's up there in the top of our most viewed. So we've talked about CFF growing. So we've got new people, and we tend to, everybody, like our guest pickers and ourselves included, tend to average around 90. Either way it goes. So it's you're not going to get them all right, especially in week 1 or 2 where it's hard to figure out these matchups and if guys are getting their points as backups, etc. But with that said, let's move on to this week. You want to scroll up to the draft order. First, want to thank the guys that are taking their time on Sunday morning to join us here before we kick off the NFL week 1 of Sunday. We've got Justice, who, first of all, congratulations on all the growth and hype around the G5 Hive. You guys have really stood out, started to make a name for yourselves there, getting the respect not only of the CFF world, but it looks like really just kind of fans of the Group of Five, competition that goes on. So yeah, thanks for being here. And how's that feel? Kind of getting the Group of Five the recognition we all know they deserve as college fantasy folks here.
It's pretty cool, man. I mean, like we've had a pretty amazing summer, I guess. Wrapping up our Worker Bee series or team preview series, getting the shout out on the Solid Verbal was really cool. Breaking 1,000 subscribers on YouTube,
Nice.
All that stuff was really awesome. Yeah, and just spreading the word about G5 college football. The one thing I guess maybe I wasn't quite prepared for is so obviously with success, comes some haters, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen quite an uptick in what I would say just people just, I don't know, some just being downright nasty and ugly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's to be expected. It pales in comparison. But yeah, I personally wasn't expecting that as
Right.
much as
No, but
I've
they
seen.
do say, so it can become a little bit of a cliche, but it's true. If you don't have haters, you're not succeeding. So, that means, with like you said, with that success comes the haters. So,
Yep.
but nice job. And then Tom, welcome back. I know, we see you in the Kings Classic here the last couple of years. You've been doing work for some companies the last several years. Now you're doing Mondays with Devy Degens. So you want to elaborate on kind of what you've been doing in the off season and what the schedule is for where people can find you and what they can then listen to this year.
Yeah, on Monday nights at 9 o'clock Eastern. Myself and SC Romero, we do a show called Devy Degens, where we talk everything Devy. We preview the week's games. We go over what's happened in the previous weeks, and basically we talk everything Devy. We talk everything in Devy terms. We touch on some C2C, maybe a little bit of CFF, but it's mostly Devy.
Yeah.
And it's
what's the biggest difference then in going, when you're bouncing around to your CFF leagues, knowing that you're kind of focused, more on the regular, on the Devy guys? What do you have to do to kind of filter, the difference there to make sure when you're in your CFF leagues, you're taking off your Devy hat?
Right. Well, I'm having to look at more of these G5 guys. Justice knows about that. Have to look at more of these G5 guys, more guys that are CFF production only type of dudes. So, obviously, C2C and Devy is more of a offshoot of dynasty leagues, whereas strictly CFF, you're looking at at some of these literally smaller guys like Desmond Reed and stuff like that. They're just CFF only producers.
Right. Nice. All right. Either way, we know you're both digging deep. Appreciate you again being here. Tom, we are sorry to have handed you the loss in the Kings Classic. I mentioned that I might throw that out here, but I know
Mackay Hughes is killing you there, man.
Yeah, Mackay Hughes. We talked about him before we hit the record button. 2 weeks in a row, we weren't sure week 1 if Mackay Hughes from Oregon was it was kind of a fluky deal that he didn't get the carries, and it's another blowout this week against Oklahoma State. So I didn't get to watch the game live, so I was asking you guys, and what'd you tell me? Like when did Mackay Hughes enter that game against Oklahoma State this week?
Yeah, it was basically late second half before he got any type of run.
Yeah. So, and that's actually interesting. We know he moved from group of five up to a Power Four school. So therein lies the difference again, in maybe some CFF stars versus kind of your 5-star recruits that go to the Power Four schools that are really more built, for NFL success in the future. So whereas a lot of us thought he could handle that move, we might have been wrong this offseason. It's by no means, written that way, in stone. But right now that looks like a big miss for a lot of us, because it doesn't look like he's not playing because of blowouts. It looks like he's playing because he's just buried on the depth chart. Yeah. So, all right. Well, with that, we've predetermined the draft order. We always like to cheat and make sure one of us goes first. So, Willie B., you're going to kick us off. I will be drafting fourth, and we'll get the only back-to-back picks since we just do the snake one time, or back-to-back picks one time since there's only 4 of us. But Willie, and we will say as a precursor, as of this recording on Sunday morning, Fantrax had every player practically in the database listed at 2% rostered. Our rule of thumb for this, or the rule, period, is we have to have players under 30% rostered. Fortunately, everybody except myself got their notes taken last night, so we're confident that just about everybody taken here is going to be in that under 30% category. I was at a live game yesterday traveling, so I had to do my notes this morning. I've leaned on the guys to kind of fill in some blanks and looked at some dynasty leagues to see where guys were still available, used a little bit of the gut feel to see if guys made sense. So, if things are a little bit off, we're blaming Fantrax. We've already put in a ticket and, called them out live on Twitter in a nice way to please help, get us our numbers here so we're accurate. But just a little precursor to if you hear us talking about anything about that's what that dialogue is going to be about. So with that, now, Willie, get us going here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the guy that actually beat me in the league. I know they're playing lowly William and Mary, but that's going to be Jamari Taylor for Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
He's has 5 touchdowns already on the season. He had 17 for 150 and 3 scores against North Carolina State. So hopefully if he can get me half of that against William and Mary, I'll take it at this point. He is 4% rostered as of last night. So
Okay.
we'll go Jamari Taylor.
Yeah, and that Virginia situation is pretty interesting. I know a lot of us were looking at Harrison Whaley's transfer to Virginia as a possible pickup that would work out in the long run. But yeah, the 2 guys that I thought were going to be the starters there at Virginia, Xavier Brown and Harrison Whaley, both ended up getting beat out by Jamari Taylor. Their first depth chart had him listed as RB1, and they had the other 2 listed as an OR for RB2. So if you were lucky enough to catch that prior to week 1 and grab him then, you probably got lucky to get him, because I don't think he'll be here after this week. But yeah, that's a great pickup, Willie. Probably a lot of our first choices here, if I had to guess.
Okay, cool. I'll take that.
All right. Tom, see who you got.
I'm going to take a guy from a primarily running offense, Alex Texa out of Navy. He's at 7% owned right now. They play Tulsa coming up. He's already got 30 carries and 200 yards and 2 tutties on the season. So I'm gonna stick with the running back right here.
Yeah, and that's another guy with an interesting story. He's kind of been a little bit hit or miss over the last 2 years, but he's flashed. He's been on people's radar. He's been on our waiver watch off and on. But I think he got buried with all the Heidenreich hype, and rightfully so, because Heidenreich has really been out there doing his thing. But don't forget, Navy's always got multiple backs that are going to have big weeks, and it looks like his consistency is actually improving. So another good pickup. Good job. With that, we'll kick it over to you, Justice.
I'm going to keep the running back train going. I'm going to go with Turbo Richard from Boston College. I didn't write down my percentages last night. My memory is he was like 27-ish, 28.
I had him at 25, and that was actually going to be my next pick. So I love this. Love this pick.
They play Stanford. Stanford, possibly the worst team in all, as far as P4 in the FBS. So I think they're going to lean heavily on Turbo. Cool name. He's someone I felt like kind of flew under the radar a little bit preseason.
Yeah.
In terms of drafts and where you could get him, and so happy to get him here.
All right, nice. Well, you guys have all made the running back pickings a little more slim. Let me just check one matchup before I make my pick because again, I wasn't sure if this guy was available. You guys have said it would be a fair pick here, so see if I like the matchup. I do. But I'm going to take. I'm going to make sure I get one running back that I know I really want, and I'm going to grab Tate Meadows from Troy. We talked about him last week. We mentioned that he's a guy a lot of us would have probably picked up last week if Troy wasn't playing Clemson this week. But Mr. Meadows actually came out and did pretty good against Clemson after having an even bigger week one. So I think he's a guy that's proven he's going to be the RB1 at Troy. He's going to get the volume. He's going to get the carries. And again, I think he had about 78, 79 yards against Clemson. So, he's proven he can do it against the big boys too, with his O-line there. So I'll make sure I grab, one of those running backs.
Did you guys get a percentage from him?
I didn't write
okay.
All right.
That's cool.
I know he's under 30, but I don't remember. I want to say it was like 18, 19, but I don't know that.
Yeah, I know.
Gotcha.
And I didn't take the note where he was last week, but I would guess he was one of those guys that was probably under 5% last week for sure. So looking now, trying to make sure, I get guys that were under. I think I'm going to go with Ashton Hawkins at wide receiver from Baylor. It's been kind of difficult figuring out in the preseason who the Baylor targets were going to be as far as, the top guys. But Ashton Hawkins seems to be getting steady targets, in the first 2 weeks. Looked really good yesterday. He's averaging 17.8 over his first two. I could get caught up in a situation where, they're playing a really bad team and he doesn't get to play enough, but I'll take my chances there. I think in a half of football, he might give me what I need in the Baylor versus Samford matchup, here for week 3. And then with that, we are going backwards here. So this would be Justice getting to make his second pick.
All right. I'm going to go with wide receiver Jaden Barnes, App State. They're playing Southern Miss. I think that should be a really competitive game. And so he's their number one receiver in the slot, getting lots of targets from AJ Swan there, and so I think he can have a big week this week in a big conference matchup for the two teams.
And then going to you, Tom.
Yeah, I'm gonna take another wide receiver here. I'm gonna take Lewis Bond out of Boston College. He was at 26% last night. They're playing Stanford this upcoming week. We kind of talked about that. Stanford's one of the worst teams in Power 4. Maybe the worst team. He's already got 27 targets, in 2 games. So he's obviously going to be a target hog. So I'm gonna go with Lewis Bond here.
Yeah, I like. 11 receptions in both games too. That's pretty impressive, especially since the first one was a 66-10 blowout. So that's a huge get.
Yeah, and I think the skepticism on him was just again last year he had really big games, but he wasn't consistent. So if we're gauging from the first 2 weeks, it looks like the consistency issues might be gone now, and the quarterback's done really well there as well. All right,
I'm gonna go ahead and let's see. Oh boy, I don't know if I want to. There's some these blowout matchups that we get.
Yep.
Oh man, it makes it a little harder to see who the heck's going to be playing a full game. But I do like that this guy had 17 targets, and we're talking about Skylar Bell from UConn. He had 11 receptions, 105 yards. Didn't get in the end zone though. Unlike last week where he had 2, but they get Delaware, so he is let's see, 23% rostered.
By the way, did you see what the Syracuse head coach made the team do after the game last night? After they played UConn?
No.
Yeah.
He pulled out the old high school little league move of making them run sprints after the game in the stadium.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. He is not too happy with the team. I mean, I hadn't, that's really, I've seen a couple of high school coaches do it. That's really like the classic little league move.
Yeah,
You're running sprints after the game because you played so poorly. So I thought
yeah,
that
to embarrass you in front of your family and friends.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, at that level, pretty unbelievable.
Wow.
So, all right, Tom. Now we're going to just kind of go straight through in regular order here.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pick up my quarterback here. I'm going to pair him with Lewis Bond. This could be Dylan Lonergan from Boston College. 10% owned. I kind of want to get that stack going there. Get the double points whenever I can with them.
Yep, and that's the quarterback I was talking about when I said he's got a good one. So, yeah, nice one.
Number one on my list.
Very interesting. You guys have dogged out Stanford, and we have 3 Boston College guys on the board here already. Like the first 12 picks overall. So, okay, Justice, you going to pick another BC? You got a BC tight end you can throw out here for me?
No, I mean I had all those BC guys on my list. I was after taking Turbo. I considered Lewis, but I was like, man, I don't know that I want to double tap that right now. But
Well,
I'm also going to go
his name is
quarterback.
Jeremiah Franklin, by the way, in case you want.
Actually, yeah, and I think he actually is pretty good now that you mentioned it. Yeah. Yep.
I'm also going to go quarterback, and I'm going to go with C.J. Bailey from NC State. They play Wake Forest this week, and CJ's looked really, really good the first 2 weeks. Hopefully, he can continue that in week 3.
Funny thing is, all jokes aside, and I don't care if you guys take him. The tight end from BC has had 18 targets in 2 games, so he might be worth one of us taking also. Yeah, that's crazy. I might do that just for the fun. All right. Okay. Let me focus here. It's my pick, guys, right? Okay. All right. Let me. Okay. Let's see. 2 quarterbacks down. I know I have 2 that I want. So let me go back up and see if I can grab.
Give us a little bit more on Bailey while Jay Bell's trying to get his pick.
Okay.
He's a sophomore, true sophomore. He came in last year. He had a lot of hype, I guess, last year before, as a true freshman. And I don't think he necessarily lived up to what folks' expectations were in year 1. But I feel like here in year 2, he is kind of, showing what he can do. He's a dual threat guy. I think he's much more pass first. But he can move with his legs, and they're playing Wake Forest, who I think gives Stanford a run for the money in terms of one of the worst teams in the P4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm looking. He has 3 on the ground already this season. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate the extra time there. And while you're doing that, then I went ahead and typed in the name and logo of the guy that I want. I won't take the Boston College guy. I had another note on the tight end from Oklahoma who's been doing very well. He had 12 points in both games to start the season, 6 targets in each of those games. Had no idea who he was before the season started, but I'll go with Jaron Canuck from Oklahoma. And Willie and I are both Oklahoma guys, so we'll also get our shout out on one of the biggest wins they've had in a couple of years there. Wouldn't you say, Willie?
Absolutely. And as much as I, kind of ripped the offensive line last week, it was an interesting stat that they had a 25% missed block percentage, and it was the highest since like 2015 against FCS team. So for them to get that left tackle fixed and have the O-line look so much better, it was impressive to me.
The interesting thing about Jaron is he was a linebacker. He was a linebacker the last,
absolutely.
I don't know, 3 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah, he was.
Yep.
And I play in IDP leagues, and he was someone I was really interested in. He just never kind of panned out at linebacker. Now he's a tight end.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
And he has some impressive hands. I was really surprised even last week.
Yeah. Well, what I really liked was, again, that was one of those games, one of those situations where coming out of week 1, you don't know if he just got 6 targets because, they were playing a bad team and he got the opportunities late. But when you see him getting 6 targets against Michigan, he's part of the game plan. So that's what sold me on him. And again, I don't know what his real percentage is, but I was pretty certain he's under 30. I would imagine
he's at 4.
Probably in single digits if I had to guess.
Yeah.
He was 4.
Okay, nice. Okay. All right, so now we'll go back to the front here. Willie, it's your turn.
I'm going to go ahead and keep the tight end train going. This is a guy that I was even high on 2 years ago. He just, really for whatever reason, just hadn't panned out of position. Used to be a quarterback also. This is Dan Villari from Syracuse. He is, let's see, 7% rostered. Maybe they got the roster percentage. Maybe they're slowly populating that back.
Okay. Yeah, the tight ends looked right, but Tay Meadows is still at 2%. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but he's had eight targets in the last two games. He went 7 for 100 against UConn. They get Colgate this week. He's one of those guys who, like I said, he used to be a quarterback. He's made the transition, and so now, they're rewarding him by giving him that playing time that he deserves. Did a lot of Wildcat last year, if I'm not mistaken, for them late in the season.
Right, he did come in, and they weren't very good when he was back there doing that. I think he got in an injury situation where he was, might have been was that 2 years ago or last year when he was the guy?
I thought it was last year. Okay. When they had to do that, I didn't have a whole lot of tight ends on my list, and I didn't necessarily want to get stuck with Franklin, and I don't want to look for others. So we'll take Villari since he was number 2.
Okay, nice. All right, Tom.
All right, I'm going to go back to a wide receiver right here. Take my second one. It's going to be a guy that I've been pumping up all off season. That's going to be Harrison Wallace out of Ole Miss. He's at 21% owned. A lot of people thought it was either going to be Caden Lee or Stribling leading the room there, but it's been Harrison Wallace. Okay. He's got 15 targets already and over close to 250 yards receiving. Nice. And I think they're going to be in a shootout this weekend against Arkansas.
Yeah. It's always hard in a Kiffin system to figure out who the guy's going to be. And they do tend to mix it up quite a bit, but it looks like he's getting the big share of targets there. So that's a good find. All right. And you said, who are they playing this week?
Arkansas.
Okay. A couple. Okay. So SEC is about to kick off then, because I see we have another big matchup you might be interested in, Tom, this week. All right. We'll get to that in just a minute, because I had that question I wanted to ask you. But I'll bring it up here in just a second. Justice, go ahead.
I'm going to go back to running back and take Quentin Jackson, running back for Rice. Rice switched to that triple option offense. He's their number one guy. He didn't do great this week in terms of like fantasy points against Houston, but he, in terms of carries, he was the lead guy, and they get Prairie View A&M this week, and so I think it's a good spot where they're gonna run all over Prairie View, and hopefully before Quentin Jackson comes out, he can get 100 yards and a touchdown for me.
All right.
Did you have his percentage by chance?
On Fantrax right now, if it's right, it says 8%.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna finish up my receivers here. I'm gonna take the former Oklahoma wide receiver, now Duke wide receiver, Andrell Anthony. Who is averaging 18.5 points a game. Had a really, really big game this week with 22.8. 6 targets this week, which was twice as much as he had in week 1, but they were playing Elon in week 1. So, again, as the competition increases, you get to see more of kind of where a guy's fitting into the game plan. He came down with 2 touchdowns. Even though they lost big, what I really like about Duke is Mensah and his play at quarterback. So to have a receiver that's tied to him with how good he's looked, I'll be happy, to get Andrell Anthony to fill in a hole for me this week. And they are playing Tulane. So again, should be, challenging enough, a pretty challenging game. You probably even see more targets than the 6 he had this week, I would guess. So, there we go. I'll finish out the receivers with him. For my receiver.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and grab my quarterback, and we'll take Luke Altmaier. He had 24.2 points against Duke. He's had 3 touchdowns in both his games. Let's see, 296 yards. They have Western Michigan this week. I have him at 25% rostered.
Okay.
So I imagine he should have another decent outing.
Yeah, and
this week.
he's always been interesting. I think just the history of Illinois has kept people from buying all in with Altmaier. But the last 2 years, he's been on the waiver watch, probably multiple times, each season. But there's just something about Illinois and the what you think they represent that keeps people from going all in with taking Luke Altmaier. But he always proves to be, a good hole filler. He's gonna be a good plug-in guy when you need somebody, and he's been pretty consistent. He doesn't have that super high ceiling, but he's a guy that consistently gets you about the 20 points that you want from minimally from a starting fantasy quarterback.
Right. I mean, even last year, the 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I mean, it's not, flashy or anything, but
Right.
if you need that in a pinch, there you go.
Right. He is good enough to kind of hold you over.
Yeah.
All right, Tom. We each got 2 spots left here. It's we're moving and grooving.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with my second running back here. He's in a pass heavy offense, but he's getting a lot of targets out of that offense, and he also leads them in carries. Jamari Sands out of FAU. He's 3% owned. They play Florida International this coming weekend. He's already got 8 targets and eight receptions through his 2 games.
And where's he at? He's at
FAU, Florida Atlantic.
Florida Atlantic. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's one I don't know much about. So again, I say it every year. Like I'm deep in this, and I still can't keep track of everybody. So I'm always happy to hear who our guests recommend for my real leagues, not just for the competition we have here. That's a good one. I got to look into. All right.
Nice.
Justice, you got a wide receiver, a tight end you're going to grab here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with wide receiver, and that's Corey Milner out of UAB. I can't tell you. I know he's under 30, but I can't tell you his actual because it just says 2% for him on Fantrax.
I had him at 15.
Okay.
The last 2 weeks, for all intents and purposes, 100 yards and a touchdown. That UAB defense is not good. We saw them have that shootout week 1 against the FCS team. They play Akron again this week. Again, not a good team, but like I said, the UAB defense isn't good. UAB has to pass it a lot. And so, yeah, I think Corey Milner is going to be in for another good week.
Yeah, he's averaging, 6 receptions, 100 yards, and a score.
Yep. Pretty consistent, right?
Yep. Right on target. I mean, last week, week 2, against Alabama State, he did it on 6 targets. He had 11 against Navy yesterday. But, yeah. He definitely flashes as their go-to.
Speaking of the go-to, the guy I'm going to fill my running back spot with is definitely the go-to guy for Wyoming at running back. You guys have given me the okay since he was 5% rostered last week. We were making the assumption he's still under 30 in the Fantrax world, even though we can't tell for certain. Sam Scott, the running back for Wyoming. Dorian took him last week. He had 29 carries in week 1 against Akron. Only ended up with 8 this week, but still managed a touchdown with one of those 8. They were playing, one of those FCS teams, ended up winning 31-7. So again, I'm assuming I'm not worried about the decline in carries because I think it was a situation where they're just playing an inferior team. He didn't have to finish the game. Again, didn't watch it. These are my assumptions. But based on what he did in week 1, I don't care that they're playing Utah necessarily. I think he'll get the volume to still be productive, as a running back, in the fantasy world.
All right. I'll keep the ball rolling there and go ahead and just take my last running back.
Okay.
And that's going to be Seth McGowan from Kentucky. He has 23 carries already on the season. He had 93 and 2 scores against Ole Miss, and they have Eastern Michigan, who Fantrax has 123rd against running backs. So I imagine he's going to have a pretty productive day. He was 8% rostered last night. They're showing 9 now, so I guess all of that is slowly populating, as we said before.
Good. All right, Fantrax.
Like what Seth is putting down.
Okay. All right. So now we got Tom. Your last pick. Looks like you'll
Tight
be
end.
going
Yes,
tight end.
yes, gonna be my
Justice will
tight
be doing
end.
the same.
Yeah, I'm gonna go tight end right here. It's gonna be Brett Norfleet out of Missouri. He's at 18% owned. They take on Louisiana next week. He looks like the clear number 2 target there at Missouri. Yesterday he had 7 catches for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's got 13 targets on the season already and 3 touchdowns. So I think that's a pretty solid play for a tight end.
Yeah. He's got a good history too. You know, he's not coming out of nowhere. So again, you kind of know, he's a guy that they like to incorporate. All right, Justice, we know where you're going. Who's you're going to take that Boston College guy and finish us up here with more Boston College?
I am actually.
Okay, nice.
Tom made the decision for me. I was torn between Norfleet and Jeremiah Franklin, so with him
Good.
taking Norfleet, I'm going to take Jeremiah. He's been productive. He had 12 targets yesterday, 6 targets in week 1. Again, we talked numerous times about them playing Stanford this week, and so look for another big week out of Jeremiah Franklin.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, that's amazing. We have every position covered for Boston College. I love it. Quarterback, since we're rounding up here and we are definitely not going over, we're speeding through. We've got time to talk about some of our extras. So I'll talk everyone through my decision here for quarterback because there were 2 that I really liked. I got the clearance from the guys that last night it looked like they were both under 30. Hopefully, I'm not steering anyone wrong, and they're too hard to get. But I'm choosing between Rutgers quarterback, who has really started off very nicely compared to what you typically see in a Rutgers offense. He's super experienced, Ethan Kalakamanis. He was at Minnesota for several years. He's now in year 2 at Rutgers. He's really benefiting from probably the strongest overall wide receiver core that Rutgers has had in years, if not ever. So you're seeing a lot more balance out of that Rutgers offense. And they've had a good showing before they get into Big Ten play soon. My only downside with him is he's playing Norfolk State. So I don't know. I'm a little scared, of the blowout, and they're going to get him some rest before they get into the Big Ten play. So the guy I like better that I'm actually going to take is A.J. Swan from Appalachian State. I love the matchup there against Southern Miss. I think it's kind of the perfectly matched up scenario where, they're not going to blow him out. They're going to have to play him the whole game. Hope they get in a little bit of a shootout. Can't necessarily say I think that will happen, but I think Swan's going to have to definitely, put in, a full day's work against Southern Miss and continue to kind of expand on the great start that he's had already to this season, which has him at a 29 points per game average. Trying to see the breakdown of that. I know, week 1 was phenomenal for him with 35 points. He dipped down to 23 this week, but again, they were playing an FCS team. Or who did they play this week? They only won 20-13. But either way, he's had 2 big games, and we know where he came from. He came from the Power 4 in the SEC. He's one of those guys who's moved down to the Group of 5, and I said last week, is going to be very productive in the Sun Belt all year long. So if you can still get him, grab him, play him all year long. He's gonna be the real deal. So that's it for me, guys. We'll go back to Willie B to finish us off with the draft, and then get a couple of thoughts on any other missing players that didn't make it into the draft but could still be helpful. What do you got, Willie, to finish us off?
All right, I'm gonna take a guy who's averaging 26.9 points this season.
Okay.
This is wide receiver Romello Brinson from SMU.
Oh, wow.
They have Missouri State this week. He had 4 catches, 126 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The week before, he had 7 for 121 in a score. So I imagine that he's going to run he's going to be wide open against Missouri State this week. So I'm going to go ahead and give him his 20 points.
Well, and this is no slight to you, but I imagine he might have caught your attention from a certain matchup in the home league we had this week. Willie B was facing Romello Brinson in the home league, and did not help in the outcome there for you, Willie. I'm shocked actually to hear that he was available.
I don't know if you guys saw it yesterday or not, but the first play of the game,
Yeah.
Jennings went deep and almost got picked off, got deflected right into Brinson's hands for a 75-yard touchdown.
Yeah, and what made it even more interesting, it got deflected, and then he had to do one of the things where he tipped it to himself after the deflection.
Yep.
Amazing catch there to start that game.
So I did learn from my losses. So Jamari Taylor.
Right. Oh yeah. The team Willie lost to had Jamari Taylor and Romello Brinson on the same team.
Yeah.
That was a big day for my youngest son, Devin. That's right.
Wow.
Okay. Good. All right. So we'll go in order here. Tom, you were the next to pick, but you're done. So, do you have a couple others that, you had on your list that didn't get drafted that you think are going to be beneficial to people if they're in a pinch this week?
Kavorian Barnes for TCU is at 15% owned. He looked like the lead back last week against North Carolina. Went 11 carries for 113 yards and a touchdown. Also had three receptions. Rayshawn Luke out of Fresno State. I'm not sure what's going on with that backfield. They've got 3 or 4 guys that look like they're kind of sharing the backfield. Everybody kind of expected it to be Bryson Donaldson, but yesterday it looked like it was Luke all day long.
Yeah, that's been one that's tough to figure out, but it looks like he's got a slight edge in terms of being the main guy. Justice, you got anybody?
Sure. Right. So my number 2, if I hadn't gotten C.J. Bailey, I would have taken Braylon Braxton, Southern Miss quarterback. He is the focal point of their offense, I feel like. And then again, I talked earlier about the good matchup there at App State, a good competitive game. And but like you guys have talked about, like that's a trap this week. There's so many blowout potential games, and so that's one game where it's going to be a competitive game and should probably be a high scoring affair.
Right.
Looking at running backs, one guy, I mean, if I hadn't gotten Quentin, I probably would have taken a shot on him. Is Sutton Smith at Memphis. I think we just don't know what the Greg DeRosier Jr. situation is, and so I definitely would have some hesitancy there. But if DeRosier is out again, Sutton Smith could be a good producer this week against Troy. But that Troy defense played pretty well yesterday against Clemson. So
yeah.
Looking at receivers, man, I had quite a few that didn't get drafted. You look at Jordan Dwyer at TCU, Hank Beatty at Illinois, Reggie Virgil, Texas Tech. All those guys, have had good weeks. But they don't necessarily play tough matchups, and so that's kind of why I avoided them. But if you're in a pinch, those guys could help for sure.
Right. And then, Willie, you got anybody left over that you want to throw out there?
Yes, just staying on the wide receiver train, I'm interested to see what Cade Harris from Air Force, what he's going to do. They had a bye week, but they get Utah State, who's already given up 5 through the air. So he did his through the air and the ground, and he had I think eight rushes in that first week. So interested to see what he'll do. Let's see. The running backs, both the BBs, Maccabee still available. I had him last week, as we talked about before. Jamal Roberts from Missouri, kind of like what he put up. And quarterback wise, I'm interested to see what Aiden Childs from Michigan State. They get low. He's at 29%, so that would be a little sneaky one. But they get Youngstown State this week, so that would be the last time to get your money's worth out of him. And then lastly, I still like Ethan Vasco, another guy who's just kind of still, for whatever reason, running under the radar at 20%.
Yeah, gotcha. Good. Appreciate everybody. I'll mention a guy I mentioned maybe in both podcasts last week that is still out there. It might be more under the radar after the week he had as the tight end at ECU, DeCirio Riles. He had 8 targets in a big week 1. It might be a little deceiving because he slipped to 1 target this week, but they were playing Campbell. But his 1 target was a touchdown. So, he's a tight end that I think will end up being the the top tight end there at ECU. They're playing Coastal Carolina, so I think you got a good matchup there where Riles will continue to prove, that he's going to be a go-to guy. Don't be fooled by the one target against Campbell. And remember, he did get a touchdown in that one target to give him the lead. The athletic DeAndre Rogers over at TCU is coming along. I think they might be playing North Carolina. Or who's TCU got this? No, against North Carolina, he had 5 for 43 and a touchdown. So I think you can keep your eye on him. Looks like the Delaware guys are starting to kind of prove themselves too. You got the receiver at Delaware, Jake Thal, who's averaging 17.4 over 2 games, along with his quarterback. Again, who he's put up 2 games, Nick Minicucci. So keep an eye on those Delaware guys and see if they can keep that up and maybe grab one here in a pinch again. So that's it for me. Justice, Tom, once again, we appreciate you guys. You can check out Justice in the G5 Hive on all platforms there at social media. You got any final words?
No, we go live every Monday night in season, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So join us there on YouTube.
And again, Tom, I know you'll be doing your Devy show tomorrow night. Give yourself one more round of information here for everybody to know where to find you.
Yes, 9:00 Eastern on Player Profiler Now Plus Network on YouTube. Go ahead and check that out with us. Feel free to comment in show. We'll have a discussion.
All right. That's it for me. Willie, I would like to just pat ourselves on the back. We are one of the only 2 4-0 teams in the Kings Classic on the back of Robert Henry from UTSA. Tom, we will be cheering you on the rest of the year, and I hope we can see you in the playoffs there. I know you did well last year. I don't expect anything less this year. Jared, by the way, is the only other undefeated team that's 4-0 in the Kings Classic. So not only, did he beat us in the waiver watch, he's tied with us in the Kings Classic. So he's continuing to prove himself as someone you can trust, I think. But on that note, I'll let you sign us off here, Willie, with any final words.
Guys, I appreciate you guys actually being here, and everyone else. So thank you for watching, listening, and good luck this week.
All right, thanks. Okay.